Cape Coral is one of the fastest growing cities in Florida, but a lot of people moving here really haven't run the numbers all the way through. I've been in real estate for over 10 years, and today I'll break down what it's actually like to live in Cape Coral in 2026. All the pros and cons most agents won't tell you. Let's get into it. Let's start off with the waterfront lifestyle. Cape Coral has more navigable waterways than anywhere else. Not Venice, not Amsterdam. Over 400 miles, and for a lot of buyers, that one thing changes everything. But this is where people get tripped up, because not all canals out here are the same. So you got two types. Gulf access canals, that's salt water, and it connects through the Caloosahatchee River all the way out to the Gulf. You can literally take your boat from your backyard straight to the open water. That's what most people are going for. Then you've got freshwater canals. Still really nice. I mean, you can go kayak before work or fish off your dock on a random Monday morning. So yeah, keep in mind, because once we get into costs and utilities later, that difference actually shows up in what you're paying every year. Stay tuned. Okay, so now that you got that down, let's get into the first thing that catches a lot of buyers when they haven't really done their homework on this market. I'm gonna rip the band-aid off here. Cape Coral was mostly built around 3-bedroom homes. That's just how the city came together. So if you need 5 bedrooms, maybe you've got a big family, multi-generational setup, or you just want the space, your options get pretty limited. And when those bigger homes do pop up, they're usually priced higher than you'd expect for this market. So if having a bigger house is a must for you, just go in knowing inventory is tighter than what you see in a lot of other suburban markets. It's doable, just don't let it catch you by surprise. That said, the affordability picture here is still genuinely compelling. Let's get into why. If you're looking for more affordable homes, Cape Coral can be up to 25% cheaper than Naples. That's not hype, that's just the math. Right now, median sale prices in Cape Coral are sitting in the mid 300s to high 300s, depending on where you're looking. Naples is down in the low $1 million for similar homes. Same Gulf access, same Florida lifestyle, about double the price. And it's not just Naples. I mean, I see people coming in from Miami, Tampa, Chicago, New York, and when they see what their money gets them out here, it's always the same reaction. On top of that, we're in a buyer's market right now. Homes are sitting a little longer, sellers are more open to negotiating, and there's a lot of new construction out here. They're offering things like rate buy downs, help with closing costs, upgrades, stuff you just weren't seeing 2 or 3 years ago. Stay tuned, because in a couple of minutes we're going to get into why so many homes out here are newer, but more on that later. Now, if you've been watching this market and waiting, 2026 is a pretty solid entry point. It's about as favorable as it's been in a while. But yeah, once people actually move here, there's one thing that tends to catch them by surprise. So let's get into that next. So from May through October, it's hot. You're looking at average highs around 91, 92, and the humidity pushes that feels like number over 100 pretty regularly. July and August especially, you step outside and you feel it right away. It's not just the heat, the humidity sits on you as well. If you're coming from somewhere like Minnesota, Chicago, or Canada, I mean, spend a real summer here before you decide. Not just a quick trip, but be actually here for it, because that's the only way you'll know if it works for you long term. But then the flip side, November through April, it's mid 70s to low 80s, low humidity, and you've got 260 days of sunshine a year. That's when Cape Coral is really hard to be if you like being outside. But summer is real. It's long and it's part of the deal when you live here. And that outdoor lifestyle, we'll get into it later, because it's a big reason people choose this area. You just have to know what comes with it. Stick with me. Now, the people who do well here understand that trade. So let's look at what the market is actually giving you in return right now. At this point, you're probably trying to figure out if Cape Coral actually makes sense for you, right? That's literally what I help people sort through every day. All my contact info is down below. We can just talk it through before you make any moves. Reach out. Okay, let's keep going. Back in the day, during the COVID boom, a lot of investors and builders were pulling permits out here pretty aggressive. Then rates jumped in 2022 and demand slowed down, but all those homes were still getting built. So now you've got a market with a lot of new construction and builders that need to move inventory. And a big chunk of homes out here are 2000 or newer. The northwest part of Cape Coral especially, that area is mostly homes built from around 2015 and up. Anything built after Hurricane Ian in 2022 also has to meet updated Florida building codes. So you're getting things like stronger wind ratings, hurricane clips and straps, impact windows, and elevated foundations if you're in a flood zone. That stuff actually matters when a storm rolls through. So yeah, you're getting newer layouts, newer systems, and homes built to handle storms a lot better than older homes. And speaking of hurricane risks, let's talk about it. Hurricane Ian hit in September 2022 as a Category 4. Over $100 billion in damage. Fort Myers Beach is still rebuilding. Sanibel and Captiva took a serious hit. This isn't some what-if scenario. It already happened, and it changed how this market works. So if you're moving to Cape Coral, hurricane prep is part of the deal. No way around it. And it really matters when you're looking at homes. Just because a house is on a canal doesn't automatically mean it's a high flood risk. So FEMA breaks this down into zones. Zone X is low risk, outside the main floodplain. And a lot of Cape Coral west of Del Prado falls into that. And Zone AE is the 100-year floodplain. That's where flood insurance is required if you've got a mortgage. Zone VE is the highest risk with wave action, but that's more the barrier islands, Sanibel, Fort Myers Beach, not the canals on the mainland. So yeah, you can be on a canal and still be in a lower risk zone. It just depends on drainage and elevation. At the end of the day, before you get attached to any house, you want 3 answers. What flood zone is it in? What's the base flood elevation? And has it ever flooded? Your agent should be pulling that on every single property. And once we get into the costs and utilities in a bit, you'll see how that flood zone piece actually changes what you're paying every year. Stay around. Now, understanding flood risk is a big part of buying out here, but there's another side to this city that really makes it work day to day, especially for families. So let's get into that next. Okay, so here's the deal. Cape Coral doesn't really have a nightlife scene. That's just not what this place is. What it does have, and a lot of families are looking for this, is space and a slower pace that's getting harder to find at this price point. So if you got places like Sunsplash, the biggest water park in Southwest Florida, about 14 acres, slides, lazy river, and they added a new wave pool in 2025. Gator Mics is another one. Zip lines, go-karts, mini golf, stuff like that. And the parks out here are actually really solid. Rotary Park, 4 Mile Cove, Sirenia Vista. That's probably the best spot in Lee County to see manatees from around November through March. Compared to more urban areas, you're getting more house, more yard, and neighborhoods that actually feel like neighborhoods. For families that want that, Cape Coral makes a lot of sense. But yeah, that slower pace does come with a seasonal trade-off, so let's get into that next. From November through April, this city changes a lot, and not always in a way full-time residents love. That's snowbird season. The population goes up, restaurants get busy, wait times get longer, and traffic starts to build. And then you got the bridges, the Cape Coral Bridge and the Midpoint Bridge. Those become a real pain point day to day. Those 2 bridges are the only way in and out. The river blocks the south and east. Balashay Pass closes off the west. So every car is going through one of those 2 crossings. There's no backup route. The Cape Coral Bridge alone handles about 51,000 cars a day. And during peak season, it's rated level of service F, which is basically as bad as it gets. There is a plan to expand it to 6 lanes, but construction is expected to start around 2028. So for now, it is what it is. Most locals figure out the timing and adjust around it. But if you're buying in Northwest Cape and you need to be in Fort Myers during busy hours, you want to think about that before you buy, not after. The upside is the city is actually putting money into infrastructure right now, and that's going to start changing things over the next few years. Now, Cape Coral might not look like some tech-heavy city at first, but under the surface, there's a lot of getting built right now. The city is about 40 to 50% through a 142-mile fiber optic ring that connects city buildings and utilities. And the goal is to have that done by the end of 2027. And tied into that, they're expanding Wi-Fi in parks and public spots. Right now, it's around 30% of parks, but that number is going up as the fiber project moves along. So if you like working outside or your kids are on devices at the park, that's getting better pretty quickly. They also approved a new cell tower up in North Cape, bringing in Verizon, AT&T, and T-Mobile coverage to that area. So for remote workers, this actually matters. You're getting that suburban, waterfront lifestyle at a much lower cost than big metro areas. And the infrastructure is starting to catch up. It's not perfect everywhere yet, but it's moving faster than most people expect. That said, there is still an amenity gap out here, and it's worth being real about that. While the tech infrastructure is getting better, the walkability is not there quite yet. You need a car out here, no way around it. There's no walkable neighborhoods, no stretch of restaurant you're just strolling through after dinner. The walk score of 17. That pretty much tells you the whole story. And Cape Coral doesn't really have a downtown, no nightlife district, no central spot where everything's happening. It was built back in the late 1950s as a residential city, so it just wasn't designed to be walked. It's just starting to grow into something more, especially in South Cape. But what's here right now is what you're working with. So for better restaurants, live music, art, that kind of stuff, most people head over to Fort Myers, the River District specific. That's the main urban area around here. They've got art walk, music walk every month, a solid food scene, actual events going on. The drive is usually about 15 to 25 minutes depending on where you are, and during peak season it can take longer. Cape Coral's food scene is getting better though. You got places like Stone's Throw, Rum Runners, Walk-Ons, Slipaway opened up on the water last year, so things are moving in the right direction. But if you want a walkable, urban lifestyle every day, just be real with yourself about what Cape Coral looks like right now. The city has this program called Canal Watch, run through the Environmental Resources team. They're tracking water conditions across the canal system, putting out updates, and you can actually look up what's going on in the specific area you're buying in. That kind of transparency, you don't see it in a lot of other canal markets. And beyond that, the natural side of this area is honestly really strong. You've got the Great Calusa Blueway, about 190 miles of kayak and canoe trails flows through mangroves and islands. Then Ding Darling over on Sanibel, a huge protected mangrove ecosystem, one of the biggest in the country. So yeah, the city is putting effort into protecting all of that, and it shows. Having that monitoring in place is a big plus, but it doesn't change the cost side of owning here. And that's the part I want to make sure you really understand before you go out and make an offer. This is the one you really want to pay attention to. The number you don't see on Zillow. The purchase price is just the start. So let's say you're looking at a $450,000 home on a Gulf access canal. Then insurance, depending on the roof coverage, how close you are to the water, you're looking at about $4,000 to $8,000 a year on the lower to middle range. And if you're in an AE flood zone, your lender is going to require flood insurance too. That's another $1,500 to $3,500. So before you even touch your mortgage, you're already at about $10,000 to $15,000 a year just in taxes and insurance. That's the number that catches people and is not on Zillow. Then you got something specific to Cape Coral, the utilities extension project. A lot of areas, especially up north, are still on well and septic. When the city brings in the water and sewer, you get assessed your portion of that cost. And some of the projects approved in late 2025, those assessments were over $32,000 per property. And that's before connection fees. So before you close on anything out here, you want 3 answers. Is it on city water and sewer? Are those assessments already paid off or still on the tax bill? And if it's well and septic, when is that project coming to that area? Different answers there can change your numbers a lot, and your agent should know how to pull all of that. Now on the other side of that, there are some lifestyle benefits to living here that you're not going to see on a spreadsheet either. So let's get into that next. The homeschool community out here is actually really active. You've got co-ops, programs through local churches, and a solid network of families doing it together. You're not on your own with it. And Florida makes it a lot more doable financially than most states. So there's a program called Step Up for Students. The Family Empowerment Scholarship averages around $8,000 per student each year, and there's also the Personalized Education Program, which is open to any K-12 Florida resident, no income limits. So whether you're doing private school or full homeschool, there's support there that a lot of families don't even realize until after they've already moved. If flexibility around education matters to your family, this is a real advantage. You've got both the community and the state support behind it. But on the flip side of that community feel, there are some rules out here you need to understand before you buy. Cape Coral runs code compliance almost like a citywide HOA, just without an HOA board you can go back and forth with. The common stuff, overgrown grass, clutter outside, unpermitted work, how vehicles are parked, trash cans left out too long, those are the things they're watching. And if it doesn't get fixed, it goes from a notice to fines, and it can turn into a lien on the property. The city takes it seriously, and they stay consistent with it. They also added something new in late 2025. Bright yellow signs in the yard if there's a confirmed violation on top of the mail notice. So on top of the letter in the mail, you could have a sign in your yard that everyone on the street can't see. The idea is accountability and getting things fixed faster. Most of what I've run into has still been handled with papers on the door, not signs in the yard. It's a newer program, so how much you see it seems to depend on the area. Some people feel like that's a bit much. Others like the accountability, but the direction here is pretty clear. More visible enforcement, not less. So if something like that would really bother you, that's actually useful to know before you decide to live here. If you're coming from somewhere with more relaxed rules, this can feel like a shift. The city expects you to keep things up, and they've got systems in place to make sure it happens. Now, let's zoom out a bit, because one of the biggest reasons people choose this area is the location itself. Right now, Cape Coral kind of looks tucked away when you first see it on a map, but once you actually look at the drive times, it changes pretty quickly. So Fort Myers Beach is under 30 minutes south, Naples is about 35 miles down, Tampa is around 132 miles north on I-75, easy day trip. Orlando and Disney are about 203 miles. You can go up and back in the same day. Miami is roughly 160 miles southeast. So yeah, you're a lot more connected than people expect. And then you've got Southwest Florida International Airport right there in Fort Myers, about 25 to 30 minutes from most neighborhoods. Over 11 million passengers last year, top 50 airports in the country. And you've got all the major airlines with direct flights to a lot of big cities. If you're into baseball, you've got the Red Sox at JetBlue Park, the Twins at Hammond Stadium, both in Fort Myers, and the Rays up in Port Charlotte, about 30 miles north. 3 spring training spots all really close. So the access here is actually really solid, better than most people think going in. And it ties right into the lifestyle out here. But before we wrap on the cons, there's one more environmental factor you'll want to understand before buying on the water. So you've got Lake Okeechobee in the middle of the state. When water levels get too high during the rainy season, the Army Corps releases water into the Caloosahatchee River to protect the lake. And that water carries nutrients that can feed blue-green algae blooms. Those blooms can make their way into some of the saltwater canals here. When it's bad, it's bad. You're talking smell, fish kills, water that looks like green paint. In heavier cases, it can cause skin irritation and breathing issues. And then if a red tide shows up on the Gulf at the same time, that can make things worse. Now, they did cut back on charges in 2025 to help reduce how often this happens. And the city does monitor water quality through the Canal Watch program. They're putting out updates regularly. So yeah, the monitoring is there. People are aware of it, but it's not fully solved, and it's not something that's going away overnight. Some canals stay clear most years, others deal with it more. So if you're looking at a saltwater canal property, you really want to check the data for that specific area. Talk to neighbors and ask what it actually looked like last summer. That's just part of doing your homework out here. Now, after everything we've gone through, the insurance numbers, the traffic on the bridges, the summer heat, the cold rules, the next part that makes it click for the right person, you're getting 260 days of sunshine a year. Winters in the mid 70s to low 80s, low humidity. From November through April, people out here are on the water, while most of the country is dealing with snow or waiting for it to warm up. That's just everyday life here. And the canals, they're actually really nice. You've got water at the end of almost every street, boats in backyards, manatees showing up in the cooler months. Once you're living here, you start to see how big this whole system really is. And it's not just the canals. You got the Calusa Blueway, about 190 miles of paddling through mangroves and estuaries. So for a lot of people, especially if you're coming from somewhere with only a couple good months of weather, this is what you're really buying into. Winter here isn't just a bonus, it's the reason people move. So now the real question is, who does Cape Coral actually make sense for? Let's bring it all together. Cape Coral really works for people who want to be on the water, boaters, anglers, kayakers, anyone who wants that access right in their backyard without spending a fortune. At this scale and price point, I mean, you're just not finding that anywhere else in Florida. It also makes a lot of sense for retirees and pre-retirees. Warm weather, being outside year-round, no state income tax, that lifestyle is a big part of why people move here. Remote workers too. If you're coming from a bigger city and you want to trade that cost for a place on a canal in the mid 300s to high 300s, this is one of the few spots where that actually lines up. And for families, you're getting more house, more yard, and just a slower pace. That's harder to find than it used to be at this price point. Now on the other side, it's not for everyone. If you need a walkable city, this isn't it, and it's not going to be anytime soon. If that 6 months of heat is going to wear on you, well, that's something that you've got to take seriously. And if you're not comfortable with hurricane risk, or you haven't really run the insurance numbers, those costs can catch you by surprise. Then if you need a 5-bedroom home at an entry-level price, inventory just isn't there for that. So it really comes down to what you value day to day and how this lines up with your lifestyle. Cape Coral rewards the buyers who come in with a clear understanding of what they're getting into. So if you're seriously thinking about moving to Cape Coral and you want someone who actually knows this market, shoot me an email at german@swflhouses.com today. I'll walk you through the numbers for your situation so you know exactly what you're stepping into. And if you want real breakdowns like this on Cape Coral and Southwest Florida, go ahead and hit subscribe. If you haven't yet, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching.